I had no idea what to expect with Iron Man 3 because I have very different thoughts about the first two films. Both of the first two films I liked in part, but there were aspects of both that I just didn't care for. And to be honest, I probably could have predicted my feelings towards Iron Man 3 based on because it's exactly the same. There are parts of this film that I really enjoyed and found really entertaining, and there were aspects that I just thought were a bit long-winded, a bit overly complicated, and a little bit all over the place. But generally, I liked the film. I won't give any spoilers here. I will give an overall opinion about the film's ending, but I won't say what happened. This was released, of course, in 2013, Marvel film directed by Shane Black, and stars Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. And I've said this before in the previous two reviews, I really like Tony Stark as a character. Sometimes I find him a little bit arrogant and annoying, but I love to watch him. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s performance is obviously fantastic, and I really find the character so fascinating. And that's the thing that I liked about the first two films, and that's the thing I like about this. When the scenes focus on him as a person, and we get a deeper look into who he is, or we get to just hear him speaking earnestly, I like that. It's when the action kicks in that I find it quite dull. Now, I'm not the biggest action film fan in general, so I do have to say that while I don't like those aspects of it, I still think, I can kind of judge it as somebody who would like action films and can kind of think, well, the narrative's a little bit all over the place. And they made some decisions that I didn't really agree with. I won't go into too much detail about what the narrative's about, just in case you haven't seen the second or the first film. But I will be talking about something that happened in the Avengers, which had a knock-on effect that I really liked and was really pleased with. Basically, there's this mysterious terrorist campaign headed by this character called the Mandarin, and Tony Stark puts out a personal threat to the Mandarin, and something goes horrifically wrong, and then he makes it his mission to try and confront him and put an end to this terrorist threat. Sounds quite action-packed? It definitely is. Something is revealed with the character of the Mandarin, and I thought it was just gimmicky. It felt like they were throwing in a curveball to make things a little bit more exciting and to maybe put a twist in it, but I just thought it was a really poor decision, and I thought it felt like a gimmick, and it was completely unnecessary, because until that point I was kind of slightly emotionally invested in what his interaction with this individual would be if he was ever able to locate him. But once this thing was revealed, and I'm sure you'll know exactly what I mean, but I can't say it without giving a spoiler, I just thought that was a really stupid decision. Now, I talked to a friend, and a friend really liked that decision. So, am I alone with that? Are we divided? I don't know. But for me, I just thought it felt a little bit cheesy. The action, the quality of the action, the CGI, obviously absolutely fantastic. I thought that was all brilliant. Visually compelling. The soundtrack is stunning. One of my favourite Marvel soundtracks so far. I have seen Guardians of the Galaxy, but I haven't rewatched it for the purpose of reviewing. Needless to say, that's got an amazing soundtrack. But right from the very beginning, this was great. I thought the use of the timeline worked very, very well. The storytelling aspect, in terms of being gripping, absolutely kept us hooked. But I do feel like it kind of went back and forth a lot. It didn't explain certain things very clearly. This is me as somebody who has watched all of the Marvel films that came before this only once. So I'm obviously not somebody who has watched the previous Iron Man films several times over. There are things in this that I would have appreciated explained a little bit more clearly. And I don't think a film should ever be created for somebody who has watched the previous films many times over. It should be accessible to anybody who wants to watch it, and I feel like they just don't take that into consideration. And that's something that I've noticed as I've progressed with these Marvel films. They become more complicated as it goes on, and there's this kind of understanding that you've seen the previous Marvel films, first of all, I have, but that you've also seen them multiple times and have retained all of this information and all of this different jargon. But at the same time, this can also be watched independently because the story itself is different. But as I said, it does incorporate an aspect of the Avengers. I won't say what happened in the Avengers in case you haven't seen it, but I really truly loved and appreciated the way that Tony Stark was behaving and the PTSD that he felt after that, because it made it so realistic. There are so many films regarding superheroes or spies or anybody who gets themselves into really difficult, life-altering situations, and then in the sequel they just bounce back right as rain, and it doesn't really show the human effect on it. And I was really pleasantly surprised that they put that in there, because going through that kind of thing, bearing in mind he's just a man. He is a man with a pretty awesome suit, but he is just a human. And the fact that they made it very realistic and showed that this traumatic experience from what happened in the Avengers would have a deep psychological lasting effect on him, I was really, really impressed and really pleased that they did that. So even though some of the scenes in this I thought were quite weak, the fact that that was incorporated quite a lot, I was very, very happy with that. Okay, the Iron Patriot suit, I love the design of that. I love the kid who was helping him restore his suit. There were a lot of little things that I loved. The ending I thought was exquisite. I can't say what happened, but for me, what my expectations were, it completely exceeded them. So again, even though there were bits in this that I thought dragged or were too long-winded, it ended, for me, on a high. I think some people might not like the way it ended. I think some people might have wanted it to go in a different direction. But I'm pleased with it. I don't know what happens next with his character in the MCU. Please don't tell me. But I'm looking forward to the next Marvel film. I'm not sure which one that is. But so far, as a new Marvel fan, still pretty enjoying this journey.